is proudly brought to you by the National Center for Wellness.
Can you explain the difference between a vaccine and immunity?
Yeah, vaccination is a procedure. It's the act of injecting something into your body. Immunity means that you are resistant to an infection that happens to come into your community. They are not the same thing. Vaccination is a procedure and it doesn't induce immunity. True immunity is long-term lifetime immunity, which engages both elements, both sides of your immune system. It engages fever and cytokines. And yes, you have to go through the process of cough and vomiting and diarrhea. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, that really does turn on the immune system and make it work. We are so terrified that our children might get sick. Well, guess what? They're going to get sick. They're going to. Yeah. And instead of looking at it like in terror, you should look at it like, oh, they're purging something out here. Isn't that great? We will support that. We'll keep them comfortable. We'll keep them hydrated. And I wrote a paper that's called, and it's on my website, it's called The Importance of Fever. And I did some research on that to write that paper and found that the background of some of this was that parents honestly believed, because they don't know, they don't ask, we don't have extended families anymore, right? So it used to be like if you had kids and your kid got sick and you were kind of scared, you'd go to the grandmother and say, is this something to be concerned about? And grandma would say, oh, no, it's not, it's fine. But now we run to the pediatrician who gives them an antibiotic. And so, and there was this study that showed that parents really thought that if fever went up, if they went to 102, it was going to go to 104, 106, 110, and their babies were just going to boil. Right. I mean, they really thought that. And they didn't understand the top mechanisms and all of the importance of what happens when fever happens in babies. Now, to be fair, babies under 3 months of age, fever can be a serious problem. Absolutely. And it can be septic. It can be a lot of different things. But once you get past that 4 to 6 month window, you know, we need to stop being so horrified if our kids get sick and allow them to go through those normal milestones of what happened to most of us that are over the age of 50. That we had measles, mumps, rubella, chickenpox, and pertussis, and missed some school, and all of these different things. And it was sort of a rite of passage. And now that our children don't experience any of those turning on of the cytokines, recognizing of self versus non-self, your own organs versus something that's a stray thing that got injected or found its way into your body. We don't allow that to happen anymore, and it's my opinion that it's the reason why we're seeing a sicker and sicker and sicker generation as these kids become teens and into their 20s, because their immune system, their hormones, their communication systems were never allowed to develop appropriately. We suppressed everything. The first little fever or sniffle, we're running for the Tylenol bottle or the Aleve bottle. We're wanting to not have them have any sickness whatsoever because, I don't know, parents are afraid of it. They think they might die. I mean, I don't understand why parents are so terrified of their kids getting sick. If it's a disruption in their life, they have to miss a day from work. I mean, that's exactly why the chickenpox vaccine was created anyways, was because for mommy convenience.
Yeah, I was going to say the great inconvenience. And it's true. I think a lot of it too is that the marketing is that we're taught, to fear, or to, maybe it's the fact that we're taught that we're able to stop symptoms and that we were told that symptoms are the problem. And one of the things I always love to teach through analogy, I think people intuitively get the answer when you take it into a different arena and you discuss something and bring it back. We teach our children, we want them to be strong and successful and to be able to achieve and to go out into the world. I think if you socially suppressed your children and never allowed them to interact and then sent them to middle school onto the playground, that you can appreciate that situation is not going to go very well for them. And yet to try and intervene and stop every interaction of the immune system and then expect it to be able to support and defend itself in the environment is completely illogical. And like you said, symptoms are solutions to the body.
Well,
I'll,
symptoms should be sort of, symptoms of fever is a solution, but symptoms are also kind of a warning sign that
sure.
something's missing from your biochemistry and it's causing a misfire in your physiology. It's sort of like if you're supposed to have 6 spark plugs in your car and you only have 2. And after a while, the electricity doesn't work really well, and you're supposed to have 6 quarts of oil and you only have 2. And so now the gears start to grind and smoke starts to come out of the engine. And so that should be a warning sign that there's something going on, something's missing in the engine. But instead, what do? We dump a bucket of water on it and say, oh, that was nice. Or the red light comes on in your dashboard. We'll just put a piece of duct tape over top of that. That's just annoying.
Let's cover up the symptom, right? And
if we don't see it, if we don't see it, it goes away. Or in your house, if you came into your house tonight and your smoke alarm detector was going off, it was going, ree, 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 and you just go over and you rip out the battery and throw it in the wastebasket and say, well, that was just annoying.
Thank God we solved that.
It never bothered to go look for the fire. Well, that's what conventional medicine does. It just suppresses the symptom and never bothers to look at the cause, never goes to find the fire.
That's beautiful. And that's so great. If we understand that health is normal and that sickness is an abnormal state, how is introducing a bacteria or a virus to the body in an abnormal way? Vaccination is a shot in the arm. For an illness that's normally contracted, say, one through the nose, like you would the flu or something like that. How is that a presumed method of making a child healthier?
Heck if I know. I mean, seriously, you summed up the whole, how did we buy into that? How did we assume that we take a little dead virus and, prove to me that 100% of those flu viruses in that shot are dead or attenuated is the correct word. You can't. And how does influenza get into your system? Like you said, it comes in through your respiratory tract. And if it gets past your respiratory tract, it gets into your lymphatics. And if the lymphatics don't take care of it, and it gets out into your bloodstream, and now suddenly your body starts to shiver and shake and put the fever up because it has to get the invader out. How is it that when you inject a vaccine, any one of the 16 of them, pick one, and you inject them in, that somehow that engages the immune system? I mean, all we do is develop an IgG antibody, which comes along with the definition of efficacy, right? I mean, I say that vaccines aren't safe. It's because we don't look for side effects in a long enough period of time. Vaccines are not effective. Now, vaccines are effective if you look at it from the scientific perspective, because the scientific perspective of efficacy means achieving a desired result. When I inject something into your body, and then I test your blood, and you've developed an IgG antibody, which was the desired result, therefore the vaccines are effective. And so we have somehow made a synonym between effective and protective.
Well said.
And it's not.
Well said.
The effectiveness is the IgG antibody shows up. I believe it's a marker of contamination because they have said in many medical literature now, and the CDC even says, we don't even know what this IgG does, but we assume it's a protective antibody. So if your IgG antibody is high enough, then therefore it's going to protect you from getting sick. And that's not true. And there have been lots of cases that we know that have been published in the medical literature that have adequate IgG antibodies and get the disease anyway, including tetanus. And so by the scientific word of effective, and doctors think, would you hear it on the news, on the advertisements, this is effective. It means it works. And in the case of vaccines, we say it's effective. It means it's going to keep you from getting sick. It's protective. Right. But it's a really slippery slope of how we've gone down the road to convince people that when it says it's safe and effective, that we make the assumption that effective means it's going to protect you from getting sick.
You're right. It's a half sentence.
And really, all it really is a scientific definition that it did what it was supposed to do. I injected something in you and created an IgG antibody. But there's really no scientific proof that the IgG antibody is what keeps you from getting sick.